I'm going to record this session. We'll make it available to the Patreon community. I will also share it with Rachel May, who's our guest of honor. Rachel can distribute it, do whatever she wants with it. So just know that it could be shared, at least internally, with our Patreon community. So whatever you say can and will be used against you. I'm not going to distribute it far and wide, though. You know, this is supposed to be a safe place, if you will. So hopefully we can have some good, honest conversation. So I don't know if everybody here knows Rachel or not, but Rachel May is based in Sacramento, California, and she works for Keenan, who is the author of Gap Selling and Not Taught. For those of you who are on LinkedIn, he's got a big presence there. And I asked Rachel, I think after she was on my podcast, if she would come hang out on Tequila Tuesday and talk shop and what do you want to talk about? And she had some great thoughts around building culture and things like that. And we're lucky to have her. And Rachel, just so you know, I'm going to more or less kind of keep quiet. I'll try to facilitate the conversation, we'll take questions from the group, and just kind of let you do your thing, you know. I'm here to learn like everybody else, and appreciate you spending some time with us.
Sweet. I'm so excited to be here. Everyone looks fabulous.
So
they're going to look more fabulous after the tequila.
That's right. We're all going to get a little cuter. So Rachel, tell everybody, you know, a little bit about yourself and your sales background and what you're up to right now, and then let's get into it.
Absolutely. So my background before coming to work with Keenan was in sales enablement. So I was the director of learning and development for two different copier companies, if you will, Xerox and Konica Minolta. And so I'm really passionate about creating a culture of learning and development that enables, you know, frontline leaders and, you know, AEs, SDRs, customer success, everyone, I believe, deserves, and I think it's our moral obligation as sales organizations and sales leaders to provide the type of learning opportunities that help salespeople succeed. And quite frankly, I am generally horrified at the level of support and training that most salespeople are receiving on an ongoing basis within their organization. So that's why when Scott asked me what I wanted to talk about, I was like, this is what I want to talk about. And I think there's a lot of pitfalls. I think like most things, a lot of leaders and executives within organizations, they think that they are providing the right training, the right coaching, the right resources that their people need to be successful, but they're so far away from what's actually happening in the field that they just don't get it. And so I wanted to have an open conversation about that today. And I know we have people in all different roles on the call. And so I'd love to be able to share best practices, some things that have worked for me in the past when I was building our learning and development culture in other organizations, and things we helped do today within the organizations that we work with at a sales guy to help elevate the sales profession as a whole and salespeople.
Well, I'll try to get us started here. If you're a sales leader building out a sales team and trying to create the right type of culture, what's the first couple easy, quick wins, couple things that you might be able to put in place to facilitate this culture of growth and learning and development?
I think where people go wrong is if you're in the beginning stages of creating a training and coaching plan, whether that's for onboarding or just long-term career growth for each of the people that you serve in your leadership role is that they don't start with assessment. So I think that, starting with the data and understanding, where the opportunities are to improve and being able to benchmark those things from the very beginning is the first step. So a lot of times we think about like, oh, we need training, and it becomes a box to check. But you need to do a full assessment of, what's happening within the sales organization from a metric standpoint, and then follow that backwards through the sales process and understand what skills need to be in place at each step of the sales process for that person to be successful at every part of their role, and start to measure where the organization is today as a whole, and then take that down to the individual level. So especially with sales enablement, I don't know if we have any sales enablement folks on the call, but you're going to have to spend, and if you're a sales manager, it's the same thing. If you want to get sponsorship for creating a coaching and training plan for your people, whether that's bringing in outside help or dedicating internal resources, you're going to have to speak in numbers. If you can't build the case for training that aligns to the overall objectives of the organization and why those objectives are not being met, then you're not going to be able to get the resources that you need, either financially or those internal resources, in order to go the distance when it comes to your training plan. So I think that's really where you should start. I personally believe that sales enablement should be a dotted line to VPs of sales. I think that when you do not have them as equal partners with your VP of sales, then you're setting them up to fail. But in order for them to sit in that seat, they've got to speak the language of their executive team.
Let's say that I'm a sales leader and I'm trying to articulate the ROI, if you will, of sales enablement, of sales operations. This is something that I know CROs at almost publicly traded companies who ask me all the time, how the hell did you get budget for a head of sales ops, especially so early? Can you help frame that argument or that case for everybody on the call tonight?
Yeah, I think like first you got to understand what are the metrics that matter. So if you, if you are a VP of sales, for example, or if you're a CRO, you've got to understand, number one, what metrics you're looking to move, right? So, if the team is not hitting targets, what percentage of the sales team today is hitting their targets consistently? What are the conversion rates? What is the average deal size? What is the average sales cycle time? And you're going to need all of those numbers to build the business case. Those are the things that matter to them, right? So for example, I had a client the other day that, really simple things like asking, where are we today and where are we looking to go in 5 years and why do we need to get there? Is there an exit strategy? If we're scaling up the team, what is it that we're trying to accomplish with that? What is that revenue goal? So I had a client the other day that was like, I need to go from 70 million to 100 million by 2024. And so when everybody is aligned at the executive level that we have to get to from 70 million to 100 million by 2024, then your job, if you're going to get executive sponsorship for a training initiative or a sales op person or any type of sales enablement tools for that matter, is going to have to do a full diagnosis and analysis of what is preventing us from getting there today. So you could actually use, this isn't a plug, but gap selling works everywhere. It works everywhere that you want people to do something and you want them to change. So doing that kind of gap selling analysis where you're able to say, okay, so here's where we are today, here's where we need to go, and here are the things that are holding us back, right? Our inbound conversion rates are currently at 10%. Our demo to close rate is at 7%. Right? All of those things. And you can say, okay, Now I'm going to analyze why is that the case? And you've got to backtrack it all the way through the sales process and then look at it from a skill development standpoint and find out where the problems lie and design a training plan that addresses the root causes of the larger revenue challenges that the organization is having, and then show how that training initiative or that a sales enablement tool is going to solve for those root causes to meet those end objectives.
That's great. I've got, first of all, I'm thinking to myself, 70 to 100 million by 2024. That's like so slow. Kyle Lacey and I are sitting here thinking, Jesus, I think I can do that. Because I get asked to go from like 70 million to 140 million in like 12 months. So,
I know, right? Well, fortunately,
if I'm not doubling, I'm fired. If I'm not doubling, I'm fired.
This is a CFO turned CEO, so he has a little bit more of a realistic picture of what's possible.
That makes sense. I'm going to ask a question on behalf of Anthony Zhang, who's preoccupied at the moment, but he typed it in here. He says, I try to focus on training the entire team once a month on a topic that I notice everyone is struggling with or facing. And then I try to personalize training once a week with different reps on a particular area, tactical, blocking, tackling, deal specific, that is specific to them. Is this the right approach? What other training cadences do you recommend? Is there something better? It's in the chat there if you want to try to reread it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I guess my question with that would be, how are you determining that everyone is struggling with that particular area? So another mistake that I see people make, especially frontline leaders, is that they don't base their areas of focus in training on observable moments. So there's a lot of assumption that goes on, right? So like, so-and-so isn't closing enough deals, so I'm just going to assume that, you know, she's not good at closing, as if that's a thing. Closing isn't a thing, but that's a whole other topic. And so I'm going to focus on this particular aspect of sales. So I'd say, number one, whatever you pick, it should be focused on observable moments. If you don't have the tools, especially right now, I know everybody does not have Gong and Exec Vision and Chorus AI and all of these things, but you are all on video calls all the time. So it kind of amazes me that so many people, like if your meetings are through Zoom, I don't know why you would not be recording those and at least picking out, you know, one a week that you're going to review with that particular rep. But if you don't have those opportunities for observable moments, then you have to create like opportunities to practice and then be able to see through that practice and through like real activities-based learning and assessment where you should direct those monthly trainings and then the personal trainings as well. So I love having a coaching cadence where they're getting, you know, learning and development once a month on a particular area of the sales process, and then they're getting that one-to-one coaching as well. I would just say, you know, make sure that number one, that you're basing what you choose on either observable moments or practice assessment, and not making assumptions. And then I would say number two, understanding what is your outcome that you're looking to achieve from that training initiative. So, you know, what do you want them to do differently, or what do you want them to change as a result? And make sure that you have something built in to where you can measure the impact of that training that you did last month and see if there is incremental change next month to make sure that the learning stuck, and that it actually made an impact. So if you can build like a measurement and activities piece that continues to build, where you can actually analyze the impact of your training, then that's going to make that a lot more rewarding for you and the team.
That's great. Ronan, are you there?
Yes, sir.
What's going on,
hey,
buddy?
Rachel. First time, long time.
Hi, Ronan.
I love saying that, by the way. First time, long time. I think it's hilarious. Anyway, can you give us an example of what an observable moment would look like?
Yeah, I mean, here's the deal. You cannot you do not know if somebody is good at their job if you can't watch them do their job. And when you try and coach, and you are coaching to assumptions, all you're going to do is create defensiveness, and you're going to create a culture that is lacking in trust. If you want to come tell me that I'm not good at something or I need to improve in a particular area, but you haven't seen me do it recently and consistently, then I'm looking at you and I'm thinking, this guy's full of shit. Right? Like, he doesn't know what he's talking about. And I'm going to be really defensive, and I'm not going to be open to the coaching that you're providing to me. So it's insulting to coach people when you cannot actually see them doing their job. So an observable moment is, if you want to coach me on being better at cold calls, then you best be sitting side by side, or at least virtually side by side, while I'm making cold calls. Or you best be have like my calls recorded so that you can actually be coaching to a live recorded call. Same with, like, you know, if you're talking about discovery, you need to be able to see what they're doing in discovery, and whether that's through recording or you sitting on the meeting. And if you're a sales manager, shutting your face and not hijacking the meeting, but just sitting in the background and listening, and then coaching directly after. Those are those observable moments. If you can't do it live, or you don't have the technology that you need to do that, then the other option would be like creating like role play, real play type assessments, where you can, you know, create those exercises and coach to those observable moments there.
I want to state something here that should be fairly obvious, but in my career I found is not. So Rachel, you were just talking about how the manager should kind of sit there and shut up and listen. Not only that, what I always taught my sales managers to do was sit there, shut up and listen, and take notes and write these notes down. And then after you deliver the feedback, email them the feedback, or hand them the piece of paper with your notes on it to reinforce the coaching that you just gave somebody. It's such a small, simple thing that doesn't get done often enough. So I really encourage anybody who's in the sales management position to do that. So, Alex.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thanks.
I was going to add to that. Like, I used to do, back in the day when we actually got to go places and see people, like actual humans. I used to do you could do this virtually now, like I have a virtual version of this, but I would do ride days with my reps, and they would be 4-hour time blocks. And during those, this was in my copier world, so we actually still pulled doors. So we actually like went into businesses and like tried to get a meeting that way, which I know is super old school, but it's really fun. And so I would say, okay, I need you to have like 5 strategic stops planned out. Before this day, you're going to send me all of the contacts that you're looking to reach out to, the research that you've done, the tailored value proposition that you have created for them, that's unique to that individual, and all of your preparation for that. So I want you to have like 5 or 6 stops, and then I also want you to have 1 new business meeting booked for the day, 1 or 2 new business meetings. And so we would try and do like 4-hour blocks. So just think about how you could do this virtually, right? And I had a ride day form, and in that form, there were certain things that I was evaluating them on throughout the day. So I was evaluating on their preparation, their research. I was evaluating on their ability to get through the gatekeeper and to deliver that value proposition, to obviously do what needed to be done to get that meeting. A lot of times we would get a meeting on the spot. So I would evaluate their ability to run that meeting and the discovery and all of that. And then same thing within the meeting. And I had very specific things. I'm like you, Scott, I'm very process driven. And coaching should always tie back to process. It shouldn't be generalities. Like, it can't be like, oh, that was really good. I think you were good. You had a great tone. He really liked you, right? It's got to tie back to really specific behaviors and process that you're looking to drive. And so I would fill out that form throughout the day. And in that form, it would have like, here's what they did well. Here's what they could do better for next time. And they would end with maybe like 1 or 2 pieces of coaching that on the next ride day, I would be looking for that change, like 1 or 2 things that I would like to see different in that next call. And then they would receive that ride day document. And then the next time we had a ride day, I would pull it out and I would know what I was looking for. They would know what I was looking for, because coaching is about change in millimeters. It's about 1 to 2 things at a time, not too much. Sales managers give way too much. And so if you have like a real format that you're laying out, it enables you to be very concise in your coaching.
That's great. Okay, we got Alex Smith. Alex, you should be able to take yourself off mute, man.
Rachel, what is up?
Alex, I beat you up last time I saw you, so I'm glad that you're still here.
Did you beat me up? I don't know. I mean, you don't
like
beat me up. I learned.
I love you.
You better start getting sassy. I feel like you're too nice. So you need some more tequila in you.
Nobody has ever said that to me in my life.
Okay. Well, I mean, you're on Scott Lee's. This is my first time with him.
What does that mean? How did I get?
Oh, you're sassy. You and Amy are both sassy. Come on, let's go. I'm curious, Rachel. So I didn't know you had such an L&D background. I knew you were a copier sales gal, but I didn't know you was like kind of learning and development. So I'm curious, what have you seen companies do that has just been, just for lack of a better term, shitty on L&D strategies of getting reps to actually apply training? Because in my career, I've had lots of training, but I feel like it's like a checkbox, and maybe there's a couple follow-ups, but my manager never really was seeing if I was applying what I learned. So I'm curious what you've seen companies do that's been terrible and what's worked well, and maybe specific to like learning management software, because I know, Kyle is on this too. So like what you've seen work well and not, and that sort of thing about getting people to apply what they learned, because that's the biggest thing.
Yeah, there's so much there and it's hard to nail it down. But I think number one, going back to my previous point, a lot of times they don't have complete buy-in for whatever that training initiative is from executive leadership and from frontline managers. And so any training that you deploy, all of your frontline managers should go through it first, number one, or go through it at all. I mean, I literally see people who they go train the reps and the managers aren't even there, which is just literally insane. But the managers should go through it first, because if the managers can't execute on what's being taught, then they're not going to be able to reinforce it. And they're not even going to try, because they're not going to want to look like an asshole. So if the managers aren't really confident that they can execute on the things that are delivered in training, then your learning initiative dies. The other piece is they need to be enabled and empowered prior to the reps going through the training in how they are going to drive the change management piece, because learning is just the language of change. That's what it is. So they have to be great at change management. And so I used to actually teach my VPs and my sales managers about change management, about that project management piece, and give them a clear path to what they should be doing after training to hold reps accountable, to coach them to the process. And I would give them all the tools that they needed to make it as easy as possible, those evaluation tools. But I would certify my managers first in anything that I was teaching. They had to show me competency before I would roll it out to the salespeople. So that's one of the biggest things I see, because at the end of the day, I can teach you, especially as a learning and development person, like listen, nobody listens to sales trainers anymore because usually they hire some crusty ass person who hasn't sold for 3 decades, or they hire some person who's never sold in their lives. They don't have any street cred. The salespeople do not believe them, right? And if they're not a sales trainer who also spends time in the field, that was the benefit I had in my beginning of my learning and development career. I had to be out in the field, like with reps, closing business with them, shoulder to shoulder, making cold calls with them every day. But like most learning and development people aren't doing that. And so who are they going to listen to? Who are the reps going to listen to? If what I'm saying and what's being taught in training is different than what the sales manager is modeling when they're engaging with customers, they're going to follow the sales manager, right? They're not going to follow me. So I have to make sure that the sales manager is great, that they're bought in, and that they're going to lead the change management piece before I ever roll it out to the reps.
Can I just add that it would be great if the reps, Alex, held themselves accountable to following through and executing on the training. Before we assassinate every sales manager and VP of sales and crusty ass sales trainer who has sold since 1985, how about the reps hold themselves accountable a little bit? Because speaking as somebody who's been in sales leadership for 20 years, do you know how many fucking times I've sat with a sales rep and told them to do the same thing over and over and over and over again, only to have them not do it 2 minutes later after I walk away? So not that anybody here would ever do that, because all of us are amazing and have only ever been amazing, Alex. But let's hold ourselves accountable a little bit as well, shall we?
Good point. Excellent point.
Jacqueline, you're next, Jacqueline.
Hi, Rachel. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Hello. I want to know, what if your manager isn't leading by example? How do you manage up without being deemed negative or toxic or just like not fun to work with?
So I love, first of all, to work where everything's broken. So the biggest opportunities that you have to advance in your career is when everyone around you is shitty. So I think, first of all, like, you can decide to be negative about that or to get upset about it, or you can see it as an opportunity for you. So one thing I would say is, there's a really easy way to coach people around you by using the term best practices. It's this like really soft term and nobody gets super upset about it. And it makes you sound like you just created some great idea that no one's ever heard of, when really you're probably just saying common sense out loud. But a lot of times, like, I'll say something like, you know what, this best practice I've been using that's really working for me, I'd like to show you today in this meeting so you can give me some feedback on what you think, right? So I'll ask that manager for feedback when really what I'm trying to do is demonstrate something for her or him that like they need to learn, right? The other thing is, like, ask for opportunities to coach your peers. So if you have weekly meetings or workshops that you do on a regular basis, maybe you could say that something that you're wanting to work on is creating, is helping your team more, being more of a team player. You're looking for ways to develop your own presentation skills, and then ask if you can have like 30 minutes to teach something, preferably something that maybe that manager needs to learn. And so there's a lot of kind of soft ways to coach all around you. It just needs to be done with some level of finesse and humility, if you will. But if they're really putting you in a box where they're not allowing you to do the things that are right, where not only are they not leading by example, but they're telling you, like, for example, I have cases where a rep knows that some sleazy sales tactics aren't right. It's the end of the month and I want you to go, take the paperwork to the lady who is, I don't care if she's having a baby, take that shit to the hospital and get it signed because it's the 30th. That's a real story. P.S. The sales manager did. Or I want you to go discount your face off because it's the end of the month. I want you to go, those sleazy type of tactics. Then at some point, you might have to go work elsewhere because you can't fix that. And at that point, it's like your own integrity on the line. So you can coach up by asking for help, asking for feedback, and then looking for opportunities to model the right kind of behavior. But if the person is, a sleazebag, they're asking you to compromise your integrity in any way, then you're going to have to move along. That would be my advice. What would you say, Scott?
I've got a really sneaky way to get this done. You'll love this. What I would say is, Jacqueline, I'm having a hard time hearing in my head how that is supposed to go or how that's supposed to be said. Can you just model that for me real quick? Can I hear you do it? It'll make it easier for me to do it back. So the ones you put them on the spot like that, and you're kind of throwing yourself under the bus because you're saying that you're struggling to kind of hear it being executed in your head, and you're directly asking them for help, but really you're saying, you fucking do it. You show me how it's done. You're so good. But it just doesn't sound as nasty, right? That's the trick. So you just say to them, listen, I'm having a hard time hearing how that pitch comes out in my head or how that rebuttal is delivered. Do you mind modeling that for me so I can hear it? That will force them to kind of, get in the front lines and walk the walk, so to speak. It will work. Trust me. I've had this move played on me as well as me playing it on other people. No, It's impossible as a leader to not be like, all right, I have to do this. Like you just got me in the corner, right?
I appreciate that. Piggybacking off that question, when is it appropriate for you to manage up? Like how soon into your role? Because that could be dicey also. When have you earned the right to try to manage up or to try and offer something else? Offer another.
They hired you. They thought you had.
Wait. However soon you think you're ready to ask, wait the same amount of time. So if you've been there for 6 weeks and you think you're ready to ask it, shut the fuck up and wait 6 more weeks. If you've been there a month and you're ready to ask it, shut the fuck up and wait another month. That's the math. Go ahead, Rachel. Give her a proper answer, not my sarcastic one.
No, I mean, I think that's a great answer. It depends on how you're doing it, right? I mean, if you're going to come to the table and complain and you're a brand new person, you'd be like, I don't think we're doing this right, but you haven't demonstrated what doing it right looks like, or you're not bringing a new idea to the table that works, then you're just going to look like an asshole. But also, I don't think that you have to be, I know I've had times where I'm like, oh, I'll say that when I'm killing my numbers, but right now I'm not killing my numbers. So I'm not entitled to, contribute anything. But again, if you're putting things in the reference of best practices or something I want to try, or something, that can you watch me do this, or, maybe we could coach each other in this way, then, I don't think you have to wait a huge amount of time. But if you're looking for huge change and you're really this thing that we're doing or the way that we're doing it is a complete wreck, then yeah, you better have, established yourself as a person that someone should listen to at the very least.
All right, David McHale, you've got a good question. I'm not going to pick on you about your response that I just chatted you about. Let's go to your real question.
Yeah, so I'm doing a lot of kind of sales training work right now for reps and training them kind of on same stuff I've done before. So I'm using a lot of different training tools, doing role plays, reviewing their calls, sometimes doing calls together, looking at the videos they're putting together, looking at the research that they do and giving them checklists to work through when I'm not there so that they have like some structure that we can improve together. I'd be really interested from your perspective, Rachel, what you feel are the most effective teaching tools out of what you've seen and what you've used, what you feel like if you could only put one thing in place for a new team, or you went into a company and they didn't have any sales training program whatsoever, if there is one tool that stands out as like, this I should put this in place first.
That's not even a fair question, given my job. If there was one thing that every single salesperson, if there's only one thing I could teach them and one thing I could focus on, it would 100% be discovery skills. Is that the question that you're asking?
So that is, I agree. That's fantastic. But if there was a medium, like if you could only teach them through video, or you could only write them out process checklists that they dealt with in like Asana, or you could only set up role playing sessions every week that peers had to go through with one another, or something like a kind of a tool for learning. Is there a tool that stands out to you as one that would be the most effective or the most, I guess, time effective?
Yeah, so I love certification. So I think that role play certifications for me are the #1 training tool that I've used to be effective. And you can use them at every single part of the sales cycle and have really specific, measurable things that you're looking for within those role plays that tie back to the process, to the understanding what skills that person needs to develop, and scorecards accordingly. Video those role plays, have peer-to-peer coaching going on. So I used to have to do, so when we were in learning and development for Xerox, which this was insane. So we would have to go, all of the sales trainers, we would have to go to this week-long sales training. And at the end of the training, we would have to do a role play, like certification. And there would be like your peers in the back, the person who was evaluating you, they're videotaping you, and you're literally just like sweating balls. Like you're like, I am going, I mean, people like almost seemed like they were gonna pass out. Like people cried. It was insane. But it was really great because they videoed it, and they videoed the coaching, the peer-to-peer coaching, the person who was evaluating you, their coaching. You were sent the video afterwards so that you could replay it. And we actually would do that on like a quarterly basis. And I know that's like a really high pressure way, but man, like after you do that, like you can do anything, like after you do that, you have no fear. And I came from outside the industry. I actually had never sold a copier. I had to come be a sales trainer. I didn't know anything about them. I still don't know anything about them. This product I sell now is about the only thing I've ever known everything about the product. Other than that, I was like, well, I'll learn that later. But I could go out like after that week training, and I could run a like kick-ass meeting immediately. So that's what I would say. A consistent role play is something that people don't do enough of, but it has to be really structured, and there has to be a really clear evaluation piece attached to it, or it just becomes kind of silly.
Yeah, so kind of the scorecard you were mentioning before, where you had that ride along and you would use the scorecard to kind of evaluate and give feedback that was data-based, not just kind of like, I felt like you could have been warmer here, or I felt like XYZ.
Yeah, and the case study is really important. If you're going to use role plays, it's really important that you have a strong case study that you've built out, and that the person who is going to be the customer, if you will, has very clear direction about what type of customer they are going to be, what business problems and process problems that they as the customer are experiencing, what the impacts of those problems are, what the desired future state should look like, right? Like this is something that we do for our clients. We build all the training is built around their own case study. Again, because it has to be as real as possible. And you get jokesters who try and be the hardest client ever. You have people who are like throw softballs, right? So you've got to prep the person who's in the customer seat to be realistic and to know the information that that rep should be finding in that role play.
Great. Eric wants to follow up on something that you said, Rachel.
Yeah. Hey, Rachel. So thank you for that. That was very helpful. I had a question about the role play certifications. You did a great job of essentially answering it before I asked it, but I'm curious. I think the certification word itself, is, I guess, what kind of parameters are around this? Is it something that's, structured in a way where you're literally giving a certification? I've just never heard of that term. I know what a role play is. I mean, we'll talk about that here, but.
Yeah, so I mean, you literally can, so we used to do a couple of things. It depends on what you're looking to achieve from the certification. So if you're talking about like onboarding, with onboarding, reps should be passing through particular gates and showing proficiency in their onboarding at different points. And so I would certify them at different points in their onboarding process. So when they go through maybe like their first month, something that I would do is they would have a week in the classroom, and then they would have a week in the field. In the week in the field was the manager's responsibility. The week in the classroom was my responsibility for that first month. And then the sales manager had like key things that they were looking for in the field. And the rep had specific things that they were watching other people do in the field. I would send them on like various ride days with different people, service people, sales engineers, product people, right? Like all different people in the organization. And they actually had, I called it prep school, I think. And they actually had things that they were supposed to be observing and looking for during those ride days. But they would go through like their first month of kind of cycling in and out of being in the field and observing others. And I would put them on the phones to start prospecting around the end of their first week. And at the end of that month, they would have to go through like their first certification. And so they had one certification for messaging. So like send me an email, a prospecting email or prospecting cadence. And I'm looking for like these key components, and you're going to be scored on all of those things. I'm going to watch you do like 10 live calls. Here are the things that I'm looking for, and you're scored on those things. And then there was the big one, which was and this was more like in month like 2, I think at the end of month 2, maybe even 3, where they would do the big like full first meeting certification process. That was the one was really intense and everyone get very nervous about. But that one, it was just pass fail. So they would get a ton of feedback, but the only way to fail was to not prepare.
Yeah.
Right? Just to show up and be a jackass and not prepare and not take it seriously. But if I saw that you really prepared and that, you were trying to do all of the things, then you would pass that one. But then you would have another one and another gate where I was looking for more intermediate skills, and that would be scored. And you have to pass that gate as you go along. You have to pass different certification levels. And when you think about like, people talk about like millennials or like, Gen Z, like whatever, that's like millennials are old now. So I don't know if we're still talking about them, but like younger people, they want to see that they have progression regularly throughout their career. That progression doesn't have to be a promotion. It doesn't have to be additional money. They just want to see that they're like accomplishing something and they're progressing. So giving them like gates that they need to pass with true like certifications that you can celebrate as a team. Like Scott hit his level 3 discovery certification today. Let's all celebrate that. Let's give him a gift, right? Like something special that goes along with that. Those things are important, and they, again, contribute to an overall culture of learning and development.
You know, what else I used to do is if people miss their quota by a particular amount, like let's say you were sub 80% a goal, you'd go back into these onboarding training protocols and have to recertify yourself, almost like continuing education, right?
I love that.
Like you dropped off, like you passed before and you used to know how to run a fucking demo, but guess what? You're not closing anymore. So we're going to recertify you and make you do it again. So that's something that I would, you know, encourage people to do, or running sales orgs. It's a little trick. Sanjay, or can you get yourself off mute? You had a good question.
Yeah, I was asking if certification, oh, sorry, not certification, but case studies and role playing. Like I'm working with a client who's going to be looking for sales reps. So are those good questions to ask when you're looking for sales reps?
Let me try to help reframe it. The way I understood it, Rachel, is
Okay.
during an interview process, what do you think about making people do role plays during the interview process? Is that a good gauge for somebody's potential effectiveness, or throw it out? I see you grimacing.
Yeah, I don't really like it.
Really?
You like it?
I do like it, actually. I don't like it if the interviewer is making you pitch their product, which you've had no training and you're not familiar with. I do like it if you're to say, sell me wherever you were at before, whose pitch you have memorized because you were there for 3 years, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe I've just never seen it executed well. I think, you know, it's hard in an interview process. The person is so nervous, and here's what I would say. If you tell them that they're going to have to do it prior to the interview, and they understand, but if you spring it on them in the moment, that's fucked up.
Yeah, that's.
But if you prepped them beforehand, then I guess then I would be fine with that. Every time I've ever seen anyone did it, they did it as some sort of trick and put the person on the spot, and they didn't know it was going to happen. And I just think that's rude.
Yeah, you can't do it that way. You got to give people time. And, you know, I used to have people run the whole demo or deliver a presentation, for example, in particular, if it was like larger kind of enterprise type deals. I want to see how somebody does. And if they've had time to prep and they're speaking about something that they're theoretically really good at, right? Because their resume shows they hit 120% to quota 5 quarters in a row, right? I think there's nothing wrong with doing it that particular way, personally.
All right. I'm open to it.
Rachel, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
I don't know how many people here are looking for work or not, but what are some companies out there that you're aware of who do training and development and coaching right, and do it right from the start, and do it even if you've been there for a particular period of time? You and Keenan have your hands and mitts in God knows how many organizations out there. What are some places that if somebody was looking to go work might be a good destination for them?
Is it bad that I don't know of very many?
It is bad, actually. It is bad. It's honest. Bad.
So one of my favorite clients, and they have one of the most amazing sales enablement gals I've ever met, is PitchBook Data, and I believe they are hiring. It's an incredible organization. Their culture is incredible. Their learning and development is incredible, and they use gap selling, and they're doing a really great job with it. So I would recommend them. Gong, of course, is a great company to work for and has great learning and development programs from everything that I've seen. I'm trying to think off the top of my head some other like larger organizations that I might recommend, I would say one thing I would look for if you really want to go somewhere where they have a strong culture of learning and development is find out if they have sales enablement, right? Like if do they have a sales enablement department? Do they have someone who's leading that, or do they just rely on sales managers to do it? Is an actual like built out program, or is everybody just winging it? If there's no sales enablement, no sales ops person, no sales trainers internally, then you're probably not going to get the help that you need if that's what you're looking for. Now, if you're the person who wants to create that within an organization, then look for a place that necessarily doesn't have that, but they believe in those principles. And that way you could position yourself as someone to slide into one of those roles.
Yeah. And in very early stage orgs, there's only one hack that I'm aware of for that, because they're not going to have all those resources that you're really talking about, Rachel. Mm-hmm. To me, this is where whoever is running revenue, sales or sales and marketing or whatever, that person matters big time. Mm-hmm. And I would drill down really, really hard into who that person is, what they're all about, what they've done before, right? How many people would kind of raise their hand and say, I'd go to war with that person again. This person changed mm-hmm. my career. This person changed my life. This person spent hours with me on X, Y, and Z. Because if you go to an early stage startup and don't get that person, you will be on an island for sure. Mm-hmm. And if you're somebody who needs that kind of attention and training and is thirsty for it, you're just not going to get it. But you can go to early stage companies and find that particular person. I am one of those people, and I was at an early stage company 6 times, and I did all that shit. But mm-hmm. Not everybody is me, but there's a lot of people out there who will go that route. Just don't let up and be relentless in terms of grilling them and finding out if they're going to do all that stuff,
Yeah, absolutely. Another company that comes to mind, I know they're hiring, is Duola. And they're a smaller organization. They don't have sales ops yet. I think they're hiring some enterprise reps and SDRs right now. But the CEO of that company, Brady Harris, is literally the person that changed my life and built me. And he's just a fanatic about developing people and coaching and developing people. They're based out of Iowa, out of Des Moines.
We've got a one last question, I think, from Lori. Are you able to get yourself off mute, Lori?
Hi, everyone. Hi, Rachel. Thank you for being here tonight.
Hi, Lori.
So I heard you say earlier that the main thing you would teach a new inside salesperson is about discovery.
Your audio is a little wonky, Lori.
Sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Rachel, I heard you talk about discovery for sales, new salespeople, and that would be me. So I'm wondering if you could just, role play or show everyone, because I assume a lot of people here are managers, what that would look like. What would be the key points you would train me on?
From in discovery?
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's what she asked. Yeah.
Okay. So I don't know. Does anyone want to role play a discovery with me? I mean, how would I go about doing that?
I'll role play with you.
That's awesome.
No, you don't have to role play. Like, yeah. Let me try to help Lori a little bit. Like, what are a couple things that you teach and train as it pertains to getting really good at discovery? Mm-hmm. Are there specific questions? Is it tonality? Is it a certain amount of research? And if it is research, what things do you look for? Maybe that's the kind of direction that she was going.
So I think where people go wrong in discovery is that they don't know what they're looking for. They don't know what they're looking to discover. And so they end up just asking kind of like a smattering of questions, but they're not really like going anywhere specific. So think of yourself as a doctor. And think about when you go to the doctor, what happens, right? So you don't walk in and say, I have a headache. And the doctor doesn't go, well, do you have cancer? Right? He doesn't ask you, or she doesn't ask you to self-diagnose yourself. Right? So what a doctor does is they ask a lot of questions to find the symptoms that a problem exists. So we talk about this a lot in Gap Cell. Keenan says this great, like marriage question. So if I ask you, like, yo, Scott, how's your marriage?
Good.
Right? It's good, right? Everyone is going to answer that question and say it's good, number one, even if it's not good. Number two, what is the evaluation of good? Right? Maybe Scott doesn't know how good it could be, right? Maybe he doesn't know that his marriage is really bad or not so good, or that it's headed down the road of being not so good, right? So that's his perception. So by asking him if his marriage is good, then I am actually like asking him to self-diagnose himself. So when we're in discovery, a lot of times people are asked like qualifying questions, information that you need as a salesperson to sell them. But that's not what discovery is. Discovery is designed to help the client fully understand their own current state so that they can make the best decision possible with or without you. So they will know if the pain of same is larger or smaller than the pain of change, and to what extent. And so instead of asking Scott if he has a good marriage, I would ask him I would look for the symptoms that he does or doesn't have a good marriage. So I would look for how often do you have date night? How often do you have the same fight over and over again? What was the best part of your wife's day yesterday? What was the worst part of her day? How often are you intimate, right? Like I could ask a number of questions, and then based on my expertise, say I'm a marriage counselor, I tell Scott if his marriage is good or bad, why it's good or bad, and what he should do with or without me to ensure that his marriage is better, or and figure out what that better means. Like, what does he want it to be? What should it be? And help him to understand where he is today, where he needs to go, and what he needs to do to fill that gap between where he is today and where he needs to go. So discovery is about, first of all, knowing what the problem is that you're looking for. So people start discovery and they don't know, they might know like what process problem they're looking for. Oh, I have manual processes. I use Excel sheets. It takes too much time. That's not the problem you're looking for. That's the root cause of another problem, which is the problem that actually matters. So you need to figure out what that business problem is that really matters. You need to figure out what the symptoms are that problem exists. And then you use discovery to find those symptoms so that you can diagnose the problem and the impact of the problem at the end of that discovery call in a way where the person goes, oh shit, I never thought of it that way. I need to fucking do something.
That's great. So many good points in there. I love the call out of like, well, what does good mean to you? And not, I might think something is good, but it might be awful because I just don't know any better. I also love the specifics with which you ask some discovery questions as it pertains to like the marriage counseling kind of analysis, right? Like everyone who's in a relationship right now should try to ask that question, like, of yourself. Can you say what your partner's best moment of yesterday or today was and what their worst moment was? And any of us who can't do that, that's not a good sign. I know I can't answer that so far for today. So I know what I need to do later today. But like those specifics there were really, really great. I thought that was really great, Rachel. Thanks for sharing that part.
You're welcome. And also go get Gap Selling. That will help you with discovery.
One final plug, Rachel, one final plug.
It's not a plug, man. Everybody needs to read that damn book. I don't even know what to say.
Listen, I talked, there it is right there, Sudha.
Woo!
Oh my gosh, and so does Jim. It's a plague.
Yeah.
It's a plague of gap selling. I was talking to Keenan the other day. I think it was Monday, maybe yesterday. And he was like, I sold 40,000 of these things. Can you believe that? Like,
He's literally shocked all the time. When he looks at the numbers, he's like, I didn't even mean to do this. Like, he's literally shocked all the time. He's like, people keep buying this book. And I'm like, it's really good. I was like, I thought I was a really great salesperson. I've always been a really great salesperson. But just the, my ability to like help people. It's not even like your ability to sell more. It's like your ability to like really help. It just goes up so much more, and it feels so much better on your soul.
Yeah. Oh,
Alex has his Kindle. Oh, by the way, the Kindle version on Amazon.
Listen,
if you
Alex
don't
just bought that right now. Okay, he did not have that like that.
No, Alex is an apostle. But if you don't have the book, by the way, Amazon is doing some flash sale. We didn't even know they were doing it, but for the Kindle version is $1.99 for the Kindle version right now. So like $1.99.
That's good. Yeah. Well, thanks so much, Rachel. I dropped your email address and LinkedIn profile in there, asking all these kind, wonderful people to connect with you and shoot you a thank you. And I appreciate you spending some time with us tonight.
That was super fun. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. We'll see all the rest of you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys. Happy selling.